Hello, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Laura.
We have a deep passion for helping couples build strong, lasting relationships that truly thrive.
So we created Tools for Marriage.
Tangible, practical tools couples can start using right away.
Wherever you are in the world,
And wherever you are in your relationship.
we truly believe these tools can improve any marriage.
And maybe we put a few divorce lawyers out of business along the way. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tools for Marriage. Laura and I always say we're excited with each guest that we interview, but that's because we're so excited. I want to come up with a different word, but we're very excited to be here today with Darren Bagwell. So welcome, Darren. Thanks so much for spending this afternoon with us.
I'm thrilled. I'm excited with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I had heard about you because I ended up doing a wedding,
Right.
and they had actually gone to counseling with you. And so I looked you up a little bit, and I said, oh, this guy's a Christian counselor. He's in the area.
Yeah.
And so we got a quick chance to speak, and I just thought, oh, man, we'd love to have this guy on. So give us a little bit of your bio, some of your background, some of your story, and we'll dive in.
My name's Darren Bagwell. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. First, I'm a beloved son of God, and I'm a husband and a father, and I get to practice in my counseling office at Reunion Counseling, and I just love what I get to do. It's a second career of mine, and so...
Well, I want to hear a little bit about you. You're married with kids,
Yes.
so I
Just
want to hear a
your
little bit
life
about how
story,
that
yes.
story kind of unfolded.
Oh
for
man,
you.
well, I think I can't quite remember, but it was deep in my childhood when I just felt the heart for family, and I knew how important it was. I was one of those naive kids in my younger 20s, late teens, where I kind of looked back at my family and kind of thought I had a perfect family because 2 parents in the home, 3 kids, dog, the whole thing.
Right.
Through I took a sociology class in undergrad, was fascinated by race, ethnicity, poverty, all of those things, and was just like, yeah, this is the field I'm going to go in. I ended up getting my undergrad in sociology, and always kind of figured I would be a counselor of some degree, helping families. God had a different story for me. Ended up being a part of a small church plant. Came back from that. That's a longer story, and got a job in jewelry sales. And so started helping, started importing diamond finished goods from India and selling to nationwide retail chain, which was so fun. I got to travel, got to know this industry I had no clue about. And then all my friends started asking me for engagement rings. And so naturally, I went to a Christian college, Vanguard, here locally. And so naturally, all of them were getting married quickly after school. And I was a trusted resource, the only person who knew. So this is the long-winded answer to your question. But so had a blast doing that. Quickly started my own company called Rock for Her, helping guys customize engagement rings. And I felt like this was, maybe this is it. Maybe this is how I'm going to support families through kind of being the hero for the man, getting them, kind of having a win-win situation, saving them a little bit of money, making a little bit of money. But, quickly realized I really didn't know how to run a business and did it for quite some time. And just absolutely loved it.
I was curious where marriage kind of entered in,
Yes.
where your wife entered the story. Was that before you had started this business?
It was right at the same time.
Okay.
So my wife and I met at Vanguard University. We're friends in the same circle. And when I moved back from Seattle, we just started reconnecting. And at one point we became single at the same time. And I was very curious, but I had to be a little sneaky because we were all in the same friend group, and I didn't want to disrupt that.
Yeah.
And so I started sort of slowly pursuing her, and she caught on, and, what's this all about? And then, 2 years later we were married, and, so absolutely had the bond of friendship, which really allowed us to move pretty quickly into, we share these values. We're falling in love. We're really enjoying and can see life together. And so said yes, and
That's awesome.
The rest is history.
So how many years married now then?
We're 17 years in.
17 years in. And how old are the kids?
We are 11 boy, Beckett, 9 Nora, and 6 Cade.
Oh, wow. That's
Wonderful.
awesome.
Yeah.
What a fun age too.
Dog, cat, and bunny.
Oh,
There you go.
A
There you
bunny? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
Yeah,
Was that your
the bunny
choice?
gets
You're like, we
neglected.
really need a
No,
bunny.
all of them are my wife's.
I see.
I promised her, I looked her in the eyes that I would not resent her for getting all these animals. And sometimes I'm tempted to, but I
Yeah.
just repent and
Yeah.
move forward. Yeah,
Just zip
yeah,
it.
exactly.
So that's-
So in the early part of
Yeah.
the marriage, you
Yeah.
were actually working on launching a business, was
Yeah.
kind of how
Yep.
that all worked, right? And so
Yep.
how long did you kind of do that business? You still do it on the side, yeah?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I closed
You
it
didn't-
down. Kind of got some wise counsel. I closed it down in I think 2019.
Okay.
Just to solely focus on counseling.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was a
okay.
great decision.
But you did that for a number of years,
Yeah.
and so the thought was, hey, this is the thing that's going to carry us. But then realized at some point that maybe this was not for you in terms of running the business, and then also
Yeah.
the idea of the counseling. Kind of, was that what you trained in? Because you said sociology, so not exactly
it
the
might
same.
have been the easiest way to get through school
I
for
see.
me. But
Okay.
I was also just loved my professors and learning about people. I was
Yeah.
always fascinated by how people tick, what makes decisions, how they move forward, and so I was definitely aimless for a lot of my years.
trying to figure out.
Yes.
Yes.
And, getting, I'm a passionate guy. And so, getting convicted on something or stirred up on something. And then that would oftentimes, move me in these certain directions. And it worked for a little while, found me my wife and a business that supported me getting through grad school and supported my family for some years. And so I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what did you get your degree in for grad school then?
Marriage and family therapy. At Hope International University. And
Okay.
that's another story, but really thankful I landed there. Kind of ended up there because one of my best friends from undergrad's a guy named Darren as well. And his dad is big in our field and was kind of one of the founding adopters of this approach for trauma called EMDR.
Really? I
Yeah.
think the EMDR is fascinating.
Yeah, so
really
she's
is.
familiar with EMDR.
Yeah.
I'm not so much. Kind of explain to me the concept and idea behind it.
Yeah, so eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. If Francine Shapiro, who founded the approach, could rename it, it would be reprocessing therapy to simplify it a little bit. But it's all about processing. So trauma is something that doesn't necessarily happen to us. It happens inside of us. And so these experiences sort of go unprocessed in our brain. And when we encounter different emotions that might trigger that unprocessed emotion, we start to feel it deeply. And so we've all heard the word trigger. Right. And so that's essentially feeling something deeply in the here and now that's necessarily from our history. And then if I can go into some of my counseling theory, it's, the only place life is happening is here and now. We attempt to be here as much as we can. Someone I read a lot of, he talks about being conscious is like being in tune with God, and then being unconscious is like he makes an approach to connect it with sin. And so we can't be conscious all the time. We can't be present all the time. It's impossible to do. So we talk about our history. And so this is what I do in therapy is we do a lot of assessment on our history to see if there is anything in our history that is impacting our present. And the great news, if there's not, which for most of us there is, then we just get to work on growth and maturity. We get to work on moving forward well and applying what we know.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if there is a discovery of something from your childhood, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how we love, because we were chatting about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, if there is something from your childhood that influenced, how you currently are triggered by a certain thing or your attachment style or whatever, then, how do you, I guess, discover that? And then what do you do once you have that information? Is EMDR the only choice? Are there other choices? What are your thoughts there?
There's so many choices.
Yeah. Okay.
I have focused on attachment theory and trauma approaches, including EMDR, but there's a few others. But there's a lot of counseling's strange. I mean, there's 200 different modalities and different approaches to helping people, and everyone's got an opinion on it. But essentially, if I can go back into my history a little bit and share, I've been, in my early 20s and maybe even teens, been to third world impoverished countries, just seeing the brokenness in the world and some of the pain in the world. And so again, I always associated my childhood as kind of ideal and perfect, you know.
Right. It could be because of that
Suburbia.
comparison with going and seeing a place,
Exactly.
a third world country or
Yeah.
whatever, and going, wow, I had it perfect, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Brene Brown helped us there. She said that we don't compare suffering. And that's because I can connect with that orphan in Africa when they say I'm sad, because I know how sad feels, because I've experienced that too.
Right.
And that still is hard for us to connect to.
Yes.
It's still really challenging for me to connect to, but I really believe it's true. And then we could talk about empathy. But so I had never really connected to my history, but I had a lot of conflict in my home. You know, essentially the story is my brother, my older brother, 2 years older, he brought a lot of chaos in my home, was just struggling as a young teen.
Yeah.
And they would bring a lot of conflict. And so I had this one moment in my story where a ton of conflict in my home. My dad and him were in this, you know, really challenging rupture, and, you know, trying to do something to make it stop. I couldn't. And so ended up going to the bathroom and just breaking down. And in that moment, I unconsciously said, I'm never going to bring pain to anyone, right, in my life, because I've seen the damage of it. And so that's where my imprint started. And with attachment theory, we talk about attachment imprint, which is all about sort of our, you know, the neural pathways connected to belief systems about self, others, God, the world, and then attachment wounds. And the great news is we now know through science and then through knowing God that we can re-imprint, we can heal wounds. So, you know, fast forward, you know, that's what I did. I cared about how you felt about me, very much so, and you know how you were feeling and how you were thinking, and I just sort of stepped into what you needed, and whatever you needed.
Yeah. And would that be acquainted with a sort of a people pleaser attachment style?
Yeah, Mylan and Kay in their love styles would call that the pleaser.
Gotcha.
And that would be under sort of an anxious attachment, insecure attachment. And so Mylan and Kay have their own language to attachment that sort of helps us laymen's understand it.
Yeah. And so Mylan and Kay, for the audience, then they're the ones who wrote How We Love.
Correct.
And kind of came up with this idea. And so you actually joined them in their effort. Tell us, if you can, kind of go down that path a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had this calling to go back into grad school to start doing this instead of my jewelry business. And that was a whole journey, but stepped into grad school, was handed my cohort and professors knew that I wanted to be a couples counselor, working with marriages specifically and families. And so I got handed a book, How We Love, read it, and I was like, oh my goodness. They just, you know, completely called me out without knowing me, and I feel really seen and insecure and kind of exposed. And so, long story short, it was like, these guys are here in Orange County. I'm going to contact them. And sort of after I graduated, kind of stepped into the journey of starting the relationship with Mylan, and he eventually hired me as an associate, and I eventually ended up taking over his organization, his counseling center, and learned a lot. He's still a mentor of mine, still a dear friend of mine, and so very thankful for being able to step into that journey with him.
A quick story. We were talking about people like, have you read How We Love? Have you gone to the? And we were like, okay, calm down a little bit.
Yes.
And then we go there, and it was just like a cult. Do you know? It was like, have you done this?
Because they're
This is
so
the best.
animated and so excited about this, like you were when you said this. Oh my gosh, I can't
Same
believe
thing.
this, right?
Yes.
And so
That we went through it, and we're the same way now.
Yeah.
It's like, this is so good. This is so good. So
yeah.
I'm so thrilled to learn more about this and kind of
Yes.
your journey and how it all works together for people.
Oh man. Well, we'll do our best to get there. It's really profound how it works, because you know, when you go to a doctor, you never want to hear, I don't know what this is. You know, you go to a doctor and you want to hear, I know exactly what this is, and here's how you move forward. And we say moving forward is the movement towards secure attachment, being a secure connector, and we see Jesus as our model for secure connection, and so that's the path. Unfortunately, we're never going to arrive to Jesus, but there is a process to be going from chaotically attached or insecurely attached all the way to securely connected, and it is a messy road. The miracles that I mostly witness is that messy path to sanctification, a messy path of sanctification. And it's profound when people get it and start moving in that direction.
Right.
We all want the miracle, though. We all want the transformation.
Right.
Most people are looking to me for that.
Yeah. Fix me.
How long until I'm better here?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
But
But back to a little bit about my story is, you know, in the process of me being that anxious pleaser, no clue I had anxiety. And how did everyone start seeing me? Well, I was the golden child, you know, I can do no wrong. I was a great kid, you know, I was loved by everybody, all these things. And so that broke down in my marriage because everybody told me all the time how great I was, and because I had no clue who I was, no clue how to be vulnerable, no clue how to identify what was going on in me. I just cared about you. And that was a taught thing. That was the nurturing as the environment that sort of developed that wound in me. But I could not handle being responsible for my wife's pain. And so in the early years of my marriage, it broke down very quickly when my wife was in pain or in distress of some kind. And because I've had all the answers for everybody else my whole life, of course I have the answers. I can be your pastor, your coach, your mentor. I can solve all your problems, and I'm right mostly. And so didn't really give her a voice. Definitely was too fragile to be able to take responsibility for me hurting her in relationship. And so that was really challenging. And you know, again, for all the young audience out there that's considering marriage or that is newly married, you know, I would say obviously God's provision of my wife, but she is the, you know, most significant part of my development and maturity, because she's loved me in my process. And because I loved her, I finally was able to say, maybe it's not her.
It's her fault.
Maybe it's me. Maybe the development that I had wasn't ideal after all. And How We Love really helped me see that. And
Where were you when you felt like, you know, some of those things were happening in your marriage? Were you still doing the sort of jewelry side of things, or were you already in the counseling sort of
I would say that my unhealth brought me into therapy, and my grad program really helped expose me and for me to start doing my own work. I've done work. We had a couple miscarriages before our firstborn, and that brought us into couples counseling for the first time. And I'll never forget our couples therapist says, describe your mom to me. And, you know, I'm like, she's fine. You know, she's at home, and, you know, the depths of my story, I have a mother wound, because I felt abandoned when all the distress was happening in my home. For a short period of time, she moved towards alcohol because she did not know how to handle the distress. And so there was a part of me that felt abandoned by her. I had no clue. No clue. I just, like, my mom's there. She's fine. She's great. She shows up, you know, like, she was really nourished. She was an amazing human, but she was really struggling with her own stuff. And the imprint, the reception that I had as a young child is she's not available. And so I did not know that. And the therapist said, it's interesting how you can't describe your mom. What kind of relationship did you have with her? And I said, you know, it's fine. It's fine. And so that helped starting to unpack that reality is like, whoa, I'm carrying a lot of pain and from my mom that I had no clue about. And I blamed some stuff on my brother and my mom that really had no clue. And the reality was the environment that I grew up in was challenging and painful for all the right reasons. And, you know, really, you know, the really cool thing is I've been able to talk about this with my mom, and my mom is just able to ask me questions and apologize. And, you know, I've had to apologize, and it's been really redemptive since then. I can't remember what got us on that conversation.
It's fair. I love going down that path, and I appreciate it.
So I mean, like you said, you're like, it's fine. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, oh, I didn't realize as a child I was feeling that, and how you're bringing it into adulthood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say to those who argue the other side of that, of like, listen, man, yeah, of course there's pain there, but like today you just got to move forward. So why do we got to dig all this stuff up and our childhood and who wronged who and was I wrong, or shouldn't we just look at tomorrow and just get the work done? Like, what would you say to someone who says, I don't think it's necessary to really like dig deep or express my emotions as much as a counselor might be wanting someone to?
Good question. I get it a lot.
Yeah.
I would say, what are your intimate relationships like? All of my insecurities and anxiety and, attachment imprint didn't show up until I really allowed that close proximity with my wife to start taking shape. Yeah. And so, I end up getting a lot of men in their late 30s and even early 40s that aren't married yet currently. And this is I would say that this has really impacted them. And so there's an approach in therapy called solution focused. And so there's a lot of people that are like, I'm not going back in my history, I'm just moving forward. And so we have a lot of sayings in therapy. One of them is, in order to heal, we must feel. And this is a really challenge, especially for men. I have had to go back and actually take a really hard look at that boy in the bathroom by himself that felt abandoned and lost and really scared and connect to him. And I see healing through the lens of maturity. And so one of the most vulnerable things that I said I have done is introduce my wife to this young boy in me. And he doesn't show up very often, but he has no business being married, no business being a father, business owner. But he shows up in the right distress, generally when I'm feeling some sort of resistance or feeling attacked or whatever it is, and he will show up and he doesn't behave like an adult. And so that part of me is really important for me to understand, me to take responsibility for, and then me, most importantly, to offer him what he needs to grow up and mature. And a lot of that is how I talk to myself. And so this is a challenge, I would say, for a lot of Christians. It's a challenge. I talk about 3 main relationships that I work with. Relationship with other, which is the obvious one. Everyone comes in for that. Relationship to God, which is a little more complex. And then relationship to ourself. This is the most challenging relationship for Christians. They don't understand it. They don't see the value in it. And so I think I don't think I have enough words or to be able to put together why you would go back in your history. I would just look at the pain. I would ask, what are the challenges here? Because I can give you, and so can you, because you guys are experts in this, a lot of tools, and that is powerful. But what are they for, right? What are they for? And most people want to move forward. They do. Yeah. But guess what? Their history keeps showing up. Their history keeps showing up. Right. And generally their history shows up, and I have so much compassion, I believe, only because I have a lot of compassion for myself. And I believe this is a provision of God, is myself. And so I have a lot of compassion, especially for men, but men and women, with their histories, because their histories, whether it was filled with addiction, bullying, whatever they did to get through those childhoods, that was all out of survival. And so they did what they knew how to do to make it through some really tough years. And then fast forward into adulthood, generally in these close proximity relationships, spouse, kids, siblings, mom and dad, these parts of us can show up. Yeah. And they're all about defending, they're all about protecting, and it's all about safety. And that doesn't work. It does not work in marriage. Right. Yeah. Right.
So when I think about how we love, a couple of the concepts that came out of it was the concept of soul words, right? Of actually looking through this list of words and being able to express your feelings to another person, as well as the sort of comfort circle, which I think is, sort of a reflective listening, in conjunction with these kind of feeling words or whatever. And I think there's just a beautiful kind of, healing circle or healing cycle that can take place when someone's not married. And I know you work primarily with, married and families, but someone's not married and they still have these child wounds, insecure attachment, whatever, whether they're looking for a spouse or they're just trying to get healthy themselves. They don't have an inbuilt person that they can deal with. And maybe in some marriages, you don't feel like you have an inbuilt person either, right? But where does someone go for that? I mean, counseling, but expensive, right? When you think about it, to do this on a regular basis to get healthy. What do you suggest for those people in terms of that, being able to process some of those things? Is this in isolation? Is this just in prayer? Is this in counseling? Or you loop a friend in who has, similar thoughts? I don't know.
Yeah. We oftentimes, we have an epidemic going on right now, and it's one of loneliness. It's isolation. And as Christians, we know that we're never alone. And so I think I would first determine whether you have a relationship with God or not, because I would absolutely attempt to do that in the presence of God as you write, as you journal or talk. And so this is a powerful act to pull out the soul words. And there's, a question in my home that I challenge all my couples to have too. And it's really simple. And it's, how do you feel right now? And as a professional in this field and, a self-proclaimed professional in this field and even an expert in this field, I'm also a husband, I'm also a father, I'm also a human. And I don't really love getting that question because it makes me pause. And it's a sacred question in my home. So we have to honor it. And it's a pause and it's, how am I feeling? I'm not really irritable at my kids. I'm anxious about finances. I'm frustrated at a situation that happened earlier. I'm sad for, and that is profound because guess what's next? What does Darren need? I'm not just going to be sad all day. I mean, maybe there's grief and that's different, but no, there is something that we can do. And it's profound when we have that sort of security and confidence of knowing what Darren needs. And I put my hand on my heart really specifically because this is very tender and nurturing. And this is what my 10-year-old needed. And so I'm able to offer him that. But holy smokes, when I bring my wife into holding me, into caring for me, into being what I need to sort of regulate and release and come back to a present, guess what happens? Bonding, right? Deeper intimacy. And I tell all my couples, best vacations, best sex, all those things, nothing has going through something painful together that produces secure bonding, right? I mean, so that all of those things are great. Pursue those things, gifts. That's good. But going through something hard together and really being there for one another is really the stuff that produces the deeper intimacy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Gives me chills. But it is like, we talk to so many couples and it is so hard for men, and the women are like, talk to me. And they're like, I mean, a lot of times I don't know what I feel. I wasn't allowed to feel as a child. And so I just think women are, come on, I want it. And so how to kind of get over that, for that hump within a relationship of having a guy talk about his feelings and his emotions.
Great question. It's one of my biggest passions. And so we all want the transformation. I think that, we talk about the big three is, what is it? Is money, sex, and kids, as the stuff that really brings the disconnect or the argument or the rupture. There's generally one that really damages a relationship, and that's the ability to be emotionally safe. And again, when we are reactive, and so I'm going to generalize here, forgive me, but a lot of men are more avoidantly attached. Not necessarily. I'm anxiously attached. I'm a pleaser. My wife is a avoider. We would call ourselves recovering pleaser and avoider. We are stepping towards being more securely connected. But oftentimes the men in their environments, in their nurturing environments, grow up saying, emotions are not healthy, right? They're not valuable. They're weak. Vulnerability is weak. And so that is deeply ingrained. And oftentimes, again, I'm generalizing, The spouse might say, I really want, you said, how do I get over the hump? We have to, well, let me back up for a second. When a male is sort of frozen or shut down, that is a reactivity. Okay. And so it's an internal reactivity, right? So it's not coming out in anger but it's still a reactivity. And so that means we have to go back into history to really understand, where did you learn that?
Yeah.
Why was that significant for you as a child? Why, how did that keep you safe and protected? And then we fast forward back into the present, and it's like, yeah, no kidding, you're doing that. No kidding. And so I always try to tell people how one way we really allow this to change our neural pathways and really sink in is we see it and affirm it. So it's changed behavior with a different outcome, and we need, unfortunately, I think, hundreds of reps. So we need a lot of reps.
Yeah.
And so when he doesn't shut down right away, or he's able to engage for 5 minutes instead of 4 minutes,
yeah,
that's movement.
Right, an attaboy
That's
goes a long
movement.
way too.
And it's really hard to see that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to see that. But, I do a lot of teaching and sort of experiential training in my office because we need reps. We need to see how doing something well, utilizing the tools, can create a different outcome. And then the hardest part is just getting the reps at home.
Yeah.
Because we're so ingrained in that, what Mylan and Kay would coin core pattern, this cyclical cycle.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult. Women shut down too. They don't have the emotional language sometimes too. They don't know how to engage when there's tension or stress or conflict. And so it's not easy, but it's absolutely doable.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard because to feel safe. Do you know, I sometimes see that where it's like, tell me more. And then it's like it comes back at them. I mean, this is male and female. I'm not saying that. Yeah, sure. But how to kind of have that safe place where you are able to share and the other person isn't reactive to it.
Yeah, to weaponize that or to put you down for what you're feeling, because whatever gains you've got in your 4 minutes to 5 minutes, when you someday go, I'm really scared of what's going to happen with our family, and she's like, man up or whatever, it suddenly is like, I'm never doing that again, right? And it goes back and reinforces that whatever, protection mechanism you had as a child, I'm going to hold on to it. Yep. It's like, all this work, right?
Yep.
All this work.
Not safe, not doing that again.
Yeah.
Dangerous, not doing that again. And I hear that word a lot, weaponize. Weaponize my vulnerability. This takes me back to the comfort circle, and the comfort circle is based in attunement. And so when we step into attachment research, attunement came from generally mother, infant, child, primary caregiver child. The child is in distress. The mother contains, I say that we all have wants, needs, desires, preferences, and opinions. And I go through that in depth because we don't understand the difference.
Sure, yeah.
We don't have a whole lot of needs.
Yeah.
But we say, I need.
I
need.
Yeah, it's a preference.
You want, you desire, and those are powerful too. And those are important. But essentially, the child is in distress. Mother or primary caregiver comes and contains all their wants, needs, desires, preferences, opinions, and attunes the child and assesses their distress. And then what do? They essentially meet their distress to completion. They do that hundreds and thousands of times to create a secure bond. That goes wrong in all sorts of ways for all sorts of reasons. And then there's trauma that comes into that too. That's, that's a whole nother podcast. But it's the same thing in adult life. So people do not know how to communicate, me included, 10 years ago. I'm good at talking. And so I talk and I like to have an opinion, and I have a preference, and I have a solution about everything. I wasn't great at listening. And so that is a profound aspect of the comfort circle as you step into roles, listener, speaker, for the purpose of attunement. So I want to hear about what's going on with you. This is really hard. The listener's role is really challenging. The speaker's role is really challenging because they have to talk about just them.
Mm-hmm.
Not you, you,
just the I feels
them.
and
I am experiencing, right? This is my pain. This is my distress, whatever it is. And then the listener's role is challenging as well, because when it is personal, we have to manage our reactivity, our defensiveness. It's not about us. So that's why Milo and Kay identified a structured set of questions. I break it down a little bit. I mean, the easiest form of this is, hey, I noticed when you got home today, you were a little irritable. Is that accurate? Can you tell me how you're feeling right now? And when you feel that way, you share, like, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, I'm whatever it is. When you feel that way, how do I be a source of comfort and relief for you? And that's easy. When we start the comfort circle, we always do non-personal. So we always do family history. We always do work, like something else. The most challenging comfort circles are the tens are the stuff that,
between the two of us, essentially. Right. Yeah.
And that's what we work up to.
You're getting that 5-pound rep early on with something about a childhood, something you weren't around. This was just my thing or whatever.
Exactly.
So that they get that attunement, that sort of,
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And it's so powerful, and it's really simple, and God attunes to us, and it's all based in the gospel, and so it's and we don't oftentimes know how to sit in His presence. That's another complex relationship we have, but when we do, how good does it feel?
Oh, that's you have an empty space in your soul. And it's like, yes.
And you represent God tangibly, and so to have that, it's really, really significant. And so it's an art form. It's a rep, and like when you think about the younger couples that you guys so often minister to and resource, we're never going to arrive at Christ. And I talk about wisdom first. We have to remember. And right now we have a lot of information, right? We can gather all the information. So we have to remember what we know. Wisdom is knowing. We have to remember what we know. So we have to access it. It's hard to access it when we're flooded, when we lost our executive functioning. But then maturity is applying it. And after the reps of applying what we know, it becomes integrated. It becomes, automatic. And you guys have plenty of experience with this,
So when you talk about, starting the reps, if you will, with a couple in your office or whatever, is that about doing something like the comfort circle, about a childhood thing? Is that like one of the exercises that you give them to kind of go, oh no, don't jump in here, just repeat what he said or whatever? I mean, is this the type of thing that you're basically doing and then saying, okay, now you guys can work on this on your own and try to create those reps? Is that one of the exercises that you're talking about giving them?
Yes.
Okay.
Very directive, and it's because there's a lot of different, again, modalities for therapy, but we just I believe in teaching. I believe in experiential growth, and so not all therapists will step into that and engage that, but I think we can't really sort of integrate something without experiencing it, and then most importantly, experiencing the value of it. The optimal outcome of it. And so that's what I try to direct. And so it can be a little clunky at first. We're all on our best behavior, and I'm pausing and reframing and trying to say, I think this is what you were trying to say, and a lot of that. But ultimately it's empowering them to be able to do this at home, so they don't need me.
Right. Yeah. And then as trying to close the loop on that, then are you, after that you've gone through that rep or whatever, is a lot of it then getting the feedback from them? What did that feel like? What was hard for you? What came easy? Is this something you think you could do on your own? Is this part of what, to get them to go, that was helpful to me, for her to hear me or to say those words I hadn't talked about? I mean, I'm curious to know how you sort of finish the training, if you will. Because I think a little bit about, you go to the gym and he's like, all right, here's one of the things I want you to do. You can do this at home, right? But then you think you can do this? Like, what are to get them to realize this is valuable and I should and can continue this on my own?
A book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he says a lot of brilliant things. One of the things he says is, in between stimulus and response, there's a space. And so I frame my counseling office as that. So we attempt to come in and we sort of shut the door on all the stimulus in your life, all the things.
Right.
And we really try to take space so that when we leave, right, we can, and in the spaces where he says change and healing happens, I like to remove the word change and I like to add growth and maturity. Change oftentimes feels this transformation, like this, and we all want that. I want that for them. And I say, prove me wrong, please. Like I would love one session and done.
Right.
But it oftentimes doesn't work like that. And we now have the research of our mind, how our mind changes, and it's over time. But I try and frame my counseling office as a place that we come and leave all the stimulus behind, to focus on if there's healing or where there's growth and maturity. And I say I will contain all of it. And so I assess for a lot of different words for this, but the dysregulation, the reactivity, oftentimes the dysfunction or the chaos in the relationship. And so I'll just make a recommendation. Hey, would you mind if I keep this here? If we keep this here, and as you guys go, you can go and you can attempt to do the very challenging thing that we're all called to do, especially as Christians, and, be fruits of the Spirit. So go and do that the best you can this week. And when you come back in, we will keep working on this. But then there's other things that are disruptors, and that's trauma, addiction. There's a lot of really crisis, and there's just really just painful. You guys have experienced a lot of that, I'm sure, in your history. It's painful stuff that shows up. That disrupts everything.
The whole relationship.
Disrupts everything. So
with that, do you kind of have to go on a side note with addiction? I mean, do the person individually getting healthy, or how do you, we do see that where someone's really struggling with something and they love each other, but this is something that they have to address. But you're like, I want to get married. I want this all to happen. So how do you think of trying to juggle this?
I'm just thinking about the couple that's wanting to get married and having to face this, and that's so common. So I guess I would say that in counseling, at least, I say that we, and I don't love saying this, but I find myself saying this more frequently, is I really want to help you, but I can't help you until this gets addressed. And I believe it can get addressed, and and here is the way we do that in sort of my limited understanding, but here's the path for you. And so there is freedom and healing for you, but it has to be addressed before we can work on this. And that's received in all sorts of ways. And I, like we talked about earlier, I see a lot of marriages in crisis. So a lot of betrayal, a lot of affairs, a lot of couples in really painful, challenging spots. And one of the keys that I see that when couples move through those seasons, which they do all the time, and it's so powerful. It's one of my favorite things to witness, is a humility and an ownership. And so I will also say that if the, let's just say the man is struggling with some sort of addiction, that she is key in your healing process, because you want and love her so much that you are willing to humble yourself and take ownership and be exposed and deal with it. And that is, I think, God's design for marriage. I don't think any newly married couple, if they knew what the challenges that marriage brings, would get married. And that's why I think it's hard for the men I see, at least in their late 30s and 40s, to actually choose that, because they built something. They
set in their ways.
They know a lot. There's all sorts of things there, but I think it's absolutely essential for our journey of maturity and sanctification process. It's so profound to be exposed and have the mirror reflect and then attempt to do something impossible and say, thank you, God, that I've been exposed. So now I can do something about it, and I can get more freedom, or I can move towards being more like your son. If I'm living on my own,
It's easy.
it is. I'm going to avoid the mirror.
That's right. That's right.
I'm going to go to all the places I'm accepted and loved and valued. And I'm going to avoid getting exposed, I think. But
I
know
like
at least
that. I remember repent, and thinking, oh, this is bad. But a lot of ways, it's like you're bringing things to light.
Sure.
Because you're kind of shameful and things, and you just go, God, I can't do this by myself. So that really I like that of just saying repent isn't like, oh, this is horrible. It's like, oh gosh, I get to hand this over to Him.
And I think that language or that mindset is so powerful because it scares us. When we get exposed or when sin shows up, or it's scary, right? It's really disrupting for us. But to have the right mindset around it, like, okay, I'm really glad this came to light. And I mean, there's feelings and there's hurts, and like all this stuff is accepted in the therapy room. But it's important to say, okay, now we know we can do something about it.
Once it's brought to light.
Let's do something about it. Yeah.
So how is it with your kids? What you're trying to do, obviously, is as secure of attachment style as possible with your kids,
that's hard,
right?
as a parent. You want, I don't want them to go to counseling, but they have their own things and things.
So do you actually put in place, it sounds like there's a rhythm for you guys to say, how are you feeling? That this is something that happens. Does this happen at the dinner table? Does it happen at night? Is there a family night? Like, what happens in the Bagwell household related to secure attachment, sharing your feelings, and trying to, build healthy, expressive kids into this?
Good question. It makes me think of when Dallas Willard was asked what's the greatest threat to our faith, he said hurry. So the first thing that just came up is a little conviction in me of, we need to be around the table more. We need to be slowing down more to have more of these conversations. But we have sports and fast-paced lives and a really rich, thriving community where we're engaged in. And so there's a lot of life. But yes, we try to make sure that the question of how are you feeling is sacred in our home. And we try to ask. We date our kids, and we try to get those one-on-one times to really go a little deeper. And we understand that when our kids are reactive, we have another saying in therapy that the problem is never the problem. And so we try to be as mindful as we can around that, and just saying something else is going on.
Something underneath.
Don't respond to this. Here, this, whatever's on the surface. Let's take some time to go a little deeper. But yes, when we're around the table, high-low buffalo, we talk about feelings,
High-low buffalo, it's like a peaks and pits.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. And buffalo is the surprise of the day.
Oh,
it's
that's kind of cool.
What surprised you about today, So
I love the icebreakers at the family table. That's pretty solid.
Got to, But the best we can. But I always say, as a self-proclaimed expert in this field, still a recovering pleaser, still a husband, still a father. So by far have I not perfected this.
When you think back, based on your knowledge of sitting down with couples, walking through and learning what works and what doesn't work, even in the therapy room, there's a certain amount of experimentation. Maybe this idea will catch with this couple, maybe it won't. If you go back and you're sitting down with kid, maybe not 10-year-old, but maybe pre-married, and you're saying, all right, you're about to go into this adventure. What are some of the key ideas that you might whisper to yourself to say, look, these are the things that you want to do? And granted, we grow a lot from the things that we mess up, right? In some cases, when we sit across from couples, I feel like, man, if they would just get it, they could avoid so much heartache. But in some ways, they have to go through it to learn, right? It's just like, there's a pothole. Oh, you just hit it. I told you about it, right? But we're like that too, right? And so I was just curious if you were to go back and say, listen, this is what is going to be most healthy for you. Right? What might you offer to yourself? And maybe that goes along with these couples that are about to step into that marriage relationship.
Yeah, it makes me think about maturity. And I couldn't have been 30 at 24, and I couldn't have been 35 at 30. And this process of sanctification, I talk about, a good stock. We want that 5, 7, 10% return every year. And so when we zoom out, we just see this movement towards Christ, and it's really profound. When we zoom in,
it doesn't look, that's true.
Up and down, up and down.
True.
And so I just want to, I at first would just normalize, like, relationship is hard, and here is the purpose of it. You know, I would say nobody gets married. I absolutely didn't get married because I said, I want to be more like Christ. Never. I said, this woman is going to improve my life greatly. Like, she is, you know, she's a step above me. This is amazing. All of those things. And so I think I would probably tell myself, for that young 20-something, or maybe now 30-something, that I believe one of the things God cares about most is who we are becoming. And this is going to be the most radical, right, significant processes of you becoming if you allow it to take shape. And it's going to be messy. It's going to be uncomfortable. We have vows, and we say in sickness and in pain and when we're broke. We have no clue what that is until we're there. And I tell couples all the time, hey, this is that. This is that thing. No one expected it. I hate this for you. I'm so sad, but we know when we move through these seasons well, it is profound and deeper meaning and deeper purpose, and a deeper bond shows up after, but nobody wants it. And so I would say this is going to be open, that this is about you and your becoming. And, you know, this is all about maturity, and, you know, we can't rush that. I have this framework in my office, and I talk about recover, repair, reconnect. And so recovering is all about I. And so when I get defensive, when I'm grumpy, when I'm angry, when I'm reactive, it is much easier for me to blame you for that, or my kids, or my dog, than to look in the mirror and say, what is coming up in me? And because it came up in me, and this is so hard for couples, because it came up in me, it's my responsibility. It's mine. So I have to learn the general word to recover, regulate, come back to a present, secure, stable state. We know that we can do that in a matter of minutes. And I talk about internal versus external resources. Internal resources are prayer. The prayer that I like the most is the contemplative prayer. It's the listening prayer. Guided imagery. And so this is about just sort of regulating the mind, hyper-focusing on something. Meditation, meditating on something beautiful or good. Breath is really profound. And positive self-talk. And so, again, reminding yourself as a provision of God of what is true. What is true. She's not the enemy. You know, like, you are loved, you are of value, you are of worth, whatever it is. And then oftentimes senses. And so we can come back to a regulated state. And I want all of my clients to know when, not if, they get reactive. It's coming for all of us. How to come back to a grounded, stable state. And so that's first, recover. And then repair. So when we are in a reactive state, we're going to say and do things that are probably damaging for the relationship. The key concept for repair is it takes humility and ownership. And so repairing, it only takes one person to move this, which is really profound. And I challenge all my couples, the most secure will go first. It's not about fair or equal. It's about mutual, and it's about connection. And so if you have what it takes to move back into connection, to move back into repair, don't withhold it. Do it. Connection absolutely changes things. And so repair is humility and ownership. And so, hey, so my wife does something that causes a reaction out of me, and then I do something, and then now we're in sort of this rupture, we're in this conflict. It's profound when I take ownership of the thing that I did that harmed the relationship, even though I can easily say, you did that, you started it. And I move back and say, hey, I really got it wrong. I raised my voice. I said this, I did this, and I'm really sorry, and I hope you can forgive me, and I'm ready to talk whenever you are. profound. Maybe she's not. I have to be okay when I don't get what I want, you know. But repairing allows for the reconnection. Reconnection's easy, but stay connected. And so I'd want the younger 20-something to know that that framework is evolving, and it's so key. It's so key. I mean, there's deeper intimacy techniques and tools around connection and even repair. But it's really important to know how to do those things. And if we don't have those modeled,
That's right.
if my dad was too busy or my mom didn't know, or what, we didn't have parent, whatever it is, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be compassionate. I don't know how to be empathetic. I don't know how to move towards him. And so that's why the teaching aspect of it is so important. But the great news is a lot of the history and a lot of our definitely our attachment imprint and wounds is all about nurturing. So people mistake this often. This is who I am. No, it's not who you are. It's what you learned, right? It's what was informed in those early developmental years, and maybe even, you know, older developmental years. And so we can unlearn it and we can relearn something else. It's not your personality. It's not who you are, right?
That's wonderful.
Wow. So the majority of couples that you end up seeing, it's reunion counseling? Is that right?
Counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that just you, or do you have other counselors on staff?
Yeah, just me. I left Relationship 180 about maybe 3 years ago. Sadly, love those guys. It's such a transformative part of my career. My wife ended up going back to grad school, and so it was my turn to support her. And so she just finished her master's in nutrition, and she's working on becoming a registered dietitian. And so,
Congratulations.
so really excited for her. She loves it. And so I left to sort of simplify what I was doing and just focus on my own practice closer to home.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great.
I love people talking about get a good counselor. I mean to get a good pre-marriage counselor and have that relationship and keep it. Do you know? Just so when the crisis does come or something, the person knows your story. I mean, and so I'm excited for people to know about you. Just that you have someone that is even at the beginning. You're getting, and like you said, where do you learn these things? And that's why we love pre-marriage counseling, because you're like, I don't even know how to do all these things. But this is like a step further where they're able to really have somebody that throughout the years can kind of guide them through these things.
It's one of my favorite parts is seeing people over time and seeing kids becoming and young adults becoming and you know, different family dynamics, and it's so special. I really love it. And you know, I think for you guys it is so significant to have like a mentor couple for this, not just all the resources you guys offer, but just to say, hey, we get it. We've been there. Right. We understand. And part of what I do, and I know that you guys do a lot, is just normalize, right? Like you're not alone.
Exactly.
You're not alone. I understand.
Yeah, you sit down with couples and they're like, this is happening. And you're like, do you know, this is so normal. This is, and I think that helps. Like you said, I think being lonely is a huge problem because we're not sitting in a circle and going, I'm struggling with this too. And to have one another, and that you just are trying to deal with it by yourself. And that is difficult.
So difficult.
Yeah.
It really can be. So thank God for you guys and stepping into this space and offering your passion and gifts.
Well, Well, I mean, definitely. So once again, we want people to connect with you. Sure. And so what was the name of your practice?
Yeah, it's called Reunion Counseling.
Okay.
And so I'm located in Newport over by the airport there, and where all the other professionals and therapists are. We call it Therapy Row.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And so do you have a website?
Yeah, you have a website.
Okay.
Little confusing on my website, but you can find me there, darrenbagwell.com. I have that up and running too. And I also do some executive coaching and working with a lot of executive teams and CEOs, and
that's cool.
An agency called Formation Agency, and that's a really fun aspect of what I get to do. But we just believe that a lot of CEOs are lonely and struggling and on their own, and we value coming alongside them and helping executive teams and get vision and values. And so that's a really fun side kind of business that I'm working on.
You said growth and maturity. I
Yeah.
love that a lot.
Yeah.
I love that you're growing and you're more wisdom as you go through things.
It never ends.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It never. Yeah, and I love it. I'm one of those that like
Yeah.
love learning things.
Yeah.
So it is exciting.
Some of my favorite clients over my career has been my couples or individuals in their 60s, 70s, and I'm just so proud of them. I just feel like so proud that they would trust me, first of all, and that they would come in because they believe that there's more and they're looking for support. That's the one thing I say every time I get a call is I'm so glad you reached out because you know that there's support. You know that you're not alone. It doesn't have to be me, but you're not alone in this, and there's support for you.
That's right.
Keep reaching out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
spending
thank
time
you
with
guys.
us. This is
Yeah,
just
it's really nice to
rich.
meet
I
you.
just love all the nuggets of wisdom and just using how God's used your story to get you to this place, and then uses the stories of all these people who come through your office and get a chance to sit down with you. I love your heart for the Lord and what he's doing, and excited about you and your family and what's next for all of you. And
Thank
so,
you.
thanks so much for joining us. Well,
So
thanks
fun.
so much for tuning in. We appreciate you joining us for another episode of Tools for Marriage. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening.
Please subscribe or follow to get notified with each new episode of the Tools for Marriage podcast. We're cheering you on.